Hey guys, it's Alex coming at you from Southern California. Had a little bit of time here today, and I figured I'd do a video that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. And I think I kind of found a way to put it together in a relatively short amount of time with some preparation, not as much as I would have preferred, but I hope it comes together. So this video is going to be showcasing these records here, which are all on the ESP disc label out of New York. It's a label that was founded in 1964 by an attorney by the name of Bernard Stolman. There's a picture of him right there. So the story goes is that, Bernard was recommended to go to a club to see a young saxophone player by the name of Albert Ayler. This guy. This is in late 1963. I think it was actually Christmas Eve of 1963. And just based on the power of what he heard that night, he decided that he was going to start his own record label. To the point he had his own law practice, had not really been involved in music at all, was really not even really particularly into jazz or anything. It was just something that he felt compelled to do, and just based on what he had heard that night from Mr. Ayler. So I'm going to show these records in the order that they were released, based on the catalog numbers, not necessarily the date of recording. I also want to preface this by saying that Tony Amuro, who no longer makes videos, I will leave a link to his channel. If you guys are not familiar, he hasn't been around for a few years, so there's a good chance that you've not necessarily seen his channel. Anyway, he did a similar video where he showed all of his ESP disc records. He also introduced me to this book here, which to my knowledge is the only book about the label. It's called Always in Trouble, An Oral History of ESP Disc, the Most Outrageous Record Label in America, by Jason Weiss. Book's a little bit disjointed, but you kind of couldn't have it any other way with the way that ESP's history is. And in my opinion, ESP Disc is the first punk label in history, both in its aesthetic, as you'll see from the cover art, from its just social impact, and from its DIY ethic, and just it's an outsider label for outsider music. And yeah, I think Bernard Stolman really gave the artists the latitude to record whatever they wanted. Now there is some controversy with the label regarding whether some of the artists were given all of the royalties that they were due. I believe that really there was very, very little money to be made with this music at that time in the mid-60s, and so the fact that Bernard Stolman was able to even put these records out into the world, sometimes in maybe only 500 exist. Some were repressed, obviously, but many of these records, probably only 500 were ever pressed. And if he was able to recover his costs, that was enough for him. So those are some of the stories that are told here. There's many interviews with individual artists. Like I said, some of them are still kind of disgruntled. Some of them fall more where I am, which is, hey, if it wasn't for him, this music would have never been recorded in the first place. So yeah, in my humble opinion, this is the most important jazz label ever. just because, you know, and you'll see it's a label that gave, you know, an opportunity for a lot of incredible artists who went on to do amazing things, and some amazing artists who unfortunately were never did much else, but at least they have this. The other sort of non-record thing I want to show is this. It's called New Old Thing. There's like a Japanese CD, and with a booklet that was put out by this Abraxas label. So it's a double CD that has a compilation double CD. Really nicely done with this is all jazz pretty much, but it's actually kind of nicely edited, and it's got some it has some like spoken word, like political things sort of between tracks. So it actually is not just a compilation, it is kind of like a mix with some additional spoken word things, and like, yeah, definitely very cool. Not really easy to find, obviously, but and then it's got this really nice booklet here. It's in English and Italian. It's got some photography, lots of photography here. You know, like I said, I mean, just like Blue Note, like Impulse, you know, the artwork is integral to the aesthetic of the label, and very much speaks to the music. So anyway, without further ado, I'll try to keep this video not too long. You know, and I will be using these notes. So these notes I found online. They're actually sort of a companion to the book, with the it's like a full discography. So I just, you know, I added a few. I've added a few notes over the years, and this is also how I keep track of the records that I don't have. I'm far from having all the ones that I would like to have. I also want to say that, you know, ESP Disc was not exclusively a jazz label. It was also a label that put out rock bands like the Fugs, which I believe is like those records are like the best-selling by far on the label, as well as some spoken word, like poetry things, and some jazz reissues, and all kinds of things. I'm only interested in sort of the jazz records, so those are the ones that I'll be showing here. Technically, the very first record, the catalog number 1001, is a spoken word thing about the Esperanto language, which is where it's ESP in the name comes from. Esperanto being it was like a universal language that some folks were trying to push, you know, in like the 50s and 60s, which Bernard Stolman, I guess, was quite interested in. So that was the 1001. And like I said, you know, the label really was founded in 1964 when he recorded Albert Ayler in that summer of 1964. And with this fantastic record, which I've shown many times, Spiritual Unity. So this is not like the very, very first pressing, but it's like, it is from the original year, like a second pressing. So, fantastic record here with, of course, Albert Ayler and Sonny Murray on drums, Gary Peacock on bass. I will say the next one in the catalog is 1003, which was Pharoah Sanders' first record as a leader. I used to have that record. I actually don't think it's a particularly strong record. It's fairly straightforward, not very interesting. So I did part ways with it. You know, it commands a pretty significant price, and I just figured somebody else could appreciate it more than me. I didn't want to just keep it because I collect the label. I think there's yeah, that's not really my approach. So the next record in the catalog is 1004. This is a New York Arc Quartet. And that's a young, he's like 21-year-old Milford Graves on drums, the great John Chikai sax here. Some of the labels are, are not very interesting, but as you'll see, a lot of the labels are custom, which, is pretty unique, especially for that time and for a jazz label. This is 1006. Like I said, I don't have every record there, so there will be plenty of gaps here, but this, of course, is Arnold Coleman. This is a recording from 1962, actually, featuring his longtime collaborators, David Izenzon on bass and Charles Moffett on percussion, with some additional strings here. Fantastic record. This is the second pressing. First pressing has like a drawing cover, which I don't like very much. I absolutely love the photograph of Ornette here. The next one is 1007, Giuseppe Logan Quartet. I know this has been shown a few times in the VC. Giuseppe Logan, man, what a player. Tenor sax primarily, plays the alto sax as well. He also plays the Pakistani oboe here and flutes. Really a multi-instrumentalist, quite a genius guy. One of the kind of sad stories of, some of the artists that recorded for ESP. I mean, this guy only put out a couple of records in ESP and was kind of disappeared for a long time. He did resurface on the streets of New York, about 20 years ago or something. I believe he's still alive. I could be wrong. I know there's some YouTube videos that resurfaced of him, like I said, a few years ago. But this is an incredible record. One of my all-time favorite covers. I mean, just imagine this. So this one came out in 1960. Well, it was recorded in October 64. So, I mean, a cover like this for a jazz record, at that time, I mean, that's pretty provocative stuff. It's both beautiful and disturbing at the same time. It just has this sort of insect imagery that I really find interesting. And the record is incredible. It falls apart. It comes close to falling apart many times. Seems very shambolic, but it just works in the end. It's fantastic. Don Pullen on piano on that one, and the great Eddie Gomez and Milford Graves. So I mean, it's a ridiculous lineup. Next one I have the 1008 Paul Bley Quintet with Barrage. This one features Marshall Allen from Sun Ra fame, Eddie Gomez again, Milford Graves again. Fantastic record. I really like this one, Bob James Trio. Definitely very different than the Bob James of the 1970s. This features the great Bar Phillips on bass, the great Robert Pozar on percussion, as well as Robert Ashley, interestingly. I know I showed this relatively recently. It's a great one. So this is Albert Ayler's Bells. Now, it's a pretty famous sleeve. This, of course, is a generic sleeve. But there's a copy I found in a small record shop, like in a small beachside town here in California a couple of years ago. The owner didn't really know what he had. He said it was like an Ornette Coleman record from what he could tell. But of course on the dead wax I could see ESP 1010, which makes this Albert Ayler's Bells. It's a one-sided record, so nothing on the B side. It's just got the A side. It's got the plasticite P on there. So I'm pretty sure this is a very early pressing, if not an original pressing. Now there were a lot of different pressings of different colors that came out of this record. As you can tell, this is like a translucent, almost swirlish purple, which again, you know, if you think about 1965, and this is how far ahead, you know, this label was. I love that record. It's got Charles Tyler, Sonny Murray, and Albert Ayler's brother on trumpet, Don Ayler. That's a live recording from 1965. It's Albert Ayler's bells. Next is number 2013. This is the second and final offering from Giuseppe Logan on the label, or in general. This is called More, and again features Don Pullen on piano, Eddie Gomez on bass, Milford Graves on percussion, and Reggie Johnson on bass here. This is another recording from Town Hall from 1965. Incredible artwork again, just amazing. Number 1014, I know I've shown this before, the heliocentric Worlds of Sun Ra. So yeah, he did several records for the label, did Sun Ra. Yeah, amazing cover. I really loved his records on the label. I know some people don't necessarily aren't so keen on them. I really think this is when he really expands that sound into, you know, the stratosphere, and just gets really free and really starts to expand that sound. This is number 1015, the Milford Graves Percussion Ensemble, of course, featuring Sonny Morgan. Now, Milford Graves was about 5 years younger than Sonny Morgan, so it's kind of interesting that he's the sort of the leader on this this record, and then it's featuring Sonny Morgan, who of course later went by Sonny Murray. I don't remember why, which was his, you know, correct legal name, but so this is an early Sonny Murray record. Fantastic percussion record. Number 1016, New York Eye and Ear Control. Yeah, enough said with that lineup. Haven't revisited this one too recently, but yeah, fantastic. This one's got a custom label. Very cool. Here's the Volume 2, Heliocentric Worlds of Sun Ra. Again, amazing artwork. Classic lineup. Marshall Allen, John Gilmore, Pat Patrick, Ronnie Boykins. It's recorded in 1965. This is the catalog number 1020. Albert Ayler's Spirits Rejoice. Again with his brother Don on trumpet, Charles Tyler on the alto, Sonny Murray on drums, and the great Carl Cobbs on harpsichord. I know it showed Love Cry recently, also featuring Carl Cobbs on harpsichord. This one also features Henry Grimes and the two bass players, Grimes and Peacock. Killer. Again, recorded in 1965. Number 1022, the Marion Brown Quartet. I know I showed this in my contest entry, one of my favorite records ever, with a very young Rashid Ali. I think this is only the second recording he ever made. Yeah, Benny Maupin, Alan Shorter, Ronnie Boykins again. Amazing. Number 1024, the Gary Burton Quartet. Gary Burton, the piano player. This one actually features Marion Brown on the alto. and Henry Grimes on bass. Another 1965 recording. I mean, a lot of these were just put out one after the other in late 1965. It was just a ridiculously productive period for the label. I mean, just an amazing, unparalleled series of records that they put out. This is Henry Grimes, the bass player, with The Call. I believe his only record ever as a leader. Again, recorded in December of 1965. Features some lesser known players, Perry Robinson, Tom Price drums. But yeah, one of my favorites on the label as well. I think this is the only non-US pressing that I have. This is Charles Tyler's Ensemble, or self-titled, the Charles Tyler Ensemble. This is a 1975 reissue, Japanese reissue, obviously. Pretty neat with the OB. Charles Tyler is hugely underrated. This one features again Henry Grimes on bass, and Ronald Shannon Jackson on drums. This one is from February of 1966. Charles Moffett on the vibes here. Really great record. Another giant of the alto sax, Sonny Simmons. His debut as a leader, I'm pretty sure, recorded in August of 1966. Features his wife, Barbara Donald, on trumpet. I believe this was a photograph that Bernard Stolman's wife took in Central Park. It's a beautiful shot. Number 1032. This is Sonny Murray. I believe his debut as a leader as well. From recorded in January of '66. Features Jacques Curciel on trumpet. Who went on to record a bunch of stuff on the BYG label, and Bayard Lancaster on alto, and Alan Silva on bass. Just another amazing record. I'm gonna just keep going. I only have about 10 minutes left here on the camera, so I want to make sure I get through this. Sorry. This one is number 1040, Marion Brown's Why Not. Incredible custom label there. This one features a young Stanley Cowell on piano, a young Cerrone on bass here, Rashid Ali also. This one's from late 1966. The great Carl Berger, German vibes player. I think I've shown this one before. This one also features Carlos Ward on alto, Henry Grimes on bass, Ed Blackwell on drums. So it's from late 1966. Another great one from Sonny Simmons. This one's a promo copy, actually. Pretty neat. Another incredible custom label. This one's recorded in late '66. Features again his wife on trumpet. Barbara. I mean, unfortunately, she did not get a whole lot of work. She was not working with her husband, unfortunately. But yeah, an excellent player in her own right. Marzette Watts and Company, one of the more sought after records on the label, and with good reason. This is, as far as I can tell, the first recorded appearance by Sonny Chirac This is recorded in late '66. Incredible lineup with Clifford Thornton, again Bart Lancaster, Carl Berger, Henry Grimes, Cerrone, J.C. Moses on drums, Junie Booth on bass. I mean, yet another incredible custom label. Sorry about that. Then the last Sun Ra to appear on the label. This is number 1045. Nothing Is. This was recorded. So the label organized a bunch of college tours, and so several records are sort of live recordings from those college tours. So this is from early 1966, doing a tour of New York State colleges. Fantastic live date there. A very young Gato Barbieri on this one. Absolutely incredible record. Of course, he appeared the year before with Don Cherry on Complete Communion on Blue Note. But, you know, this really, in my opinion, is kind of his breakout recording. Yeah, check this one out. I can highly recommend it. Does not command, you know, the prices that other records on that label do. Number 1052, James Zetro, percussionist. I have to revisit this one. It's been a while. It's recorded in 1967. Amazing record from Charles Tyler here. This is actually Tony Amuro, who I mentioned earlier, former VC member. It's actually his copy. I didn't buy it directly from him. I bought it from Red Scroll Records, which is, I guess, one of his local stores. And yeah, when I posted this online, he claimed this as his copy, which I'm actually quite happy to know that it's his, because, you know, he's definitely one of the guys that really inspired me to seek out more of this incredible music on the ESP disc. So thank you, Tony. Number 1064, an incredible early recording from Noah Howard. Great alto sax player. Also features the great Dave Burrell on piano, as well as a player I'm not too familiar with, Catherine Norris. Like I said, I mean, ESP being kind of its own thing, you know, they did feature, you know, several female players, where, you know, a lot of other labels were just not doing so. And just doing a little bit of research, she didn't do a whole lot of recorded work, but she did appear in Bill Dixon's Intent and Purposes, playing the cello. So I thought that was interesting. This one's recorded in late '66. Fantastic session, and I believe there's I think there's a song here that's dedicated to John Coltrane. Yeah, last track, 19-minute long homage to Coltrane. Of course, he had just passed that year, and that is an absolute burner track. This one is number 1076. This is Neldy Elstak. He is a Dutch trumpet player. The record's called The Machine. One of the most interesting record covers on the label. This actually is like, it's supposed to be like a mask you can cut out of the cover. Presumably that's what Neldy looks like, although I Don't quote me on that. But anyway, I think this is one of only 2 like jazz records that were recorded in Europe. This one, of course, being recorded in the Netherlands in 1968. Really cool record. It's got some like spoken, like some like poetry also. Number 1080. We're getting to the end here. Album's called SHQ. Mr. Velebny is a Czechoslovakian vibes player. Just an amazing cover here. I guess he got into a car accident around the time of the recording, and they decided, hey, that's going to be the cover. I mean, that's bold. Very nice record. Alan Silva, Skillfulness, from recorded in late '68. Again, featuring Carl Berger and Dave Burrell, among others. Barry Altschul on drums. Killer record. I know there's a couple of different versions of the cover. I kind of like this one better. So the label kind of stopped recording jazz for a while there, and there's a bit of a gap. This one's recorded in early '72. So the Revolutionary Ensemble, which is comprised of Leroy Jenkins, Cerrone, and Jerome Cooper on drums. Yeah, they put out a series of records. I think I have most of them now as a trio. Violin, bass, and drums, which I really love. This one's from 1973, Frank Lowe's Black Beans. Yeah, definitely one of the more sought after records on the label, and for good reason. It's fantastic. Also features Joseph Jarman, actually. Great one. And then the last record, really, before the label went into bankruptcy, was this fantastic record, which I've shown before, by Ronnie Boykins of Sun Ra's Orchestra. This one's recorded in early '74, and it was to be his only record as a leader. And yeah, I mean, ESP discs, they gave so many great players an opportunity to, at least put something out, as leaders. So that was it for the label. I mean, it did resurface, and it is operating now. They've put out a bunch of reissues since then. I think like an Italian label, Get Back, they bought a bunch of the tapes, and they put out a bunch of stuff in the '90s. Now this, which I think I did show before, was supposed to be released on the label in 1975. Of course, the label had just folded, so this is Masayuki Takayanagi with New Direction Unit. New Direction Unit is the group, and April is the Cruelest Month.